This is a re-release of the 6100 video. I've made some corrections and fixed the video itself as some people could not play it. I've also added an appendix to the end with more about the 6100. In this video, I'll be talking about the Power Macintosh 6100. This video will feature origins of the PowerPC chip, unboxing and startup of the 6100, the various models of the 6100, text-to-speech and speech recognition, a requisite marathon segment, monitors, Ethernet, and keyboard, and finally tips on restoration. That's a rundown. Now first, the specs. The 6100 was released on March 14, 1994, discontinued October 14, 1995. It had a PowerPC 601 chip running at 60 MHz and later 66 MHz. It had 8 MB of RAM, which was soldered to the board. In 1993, it was apparent that Intel's new Pentium was mopping the floor with Motorola's most powerful 68000 series chips, also known as 68K. Fortunately, Apple foresaw this need for change way back in 1990 and began looking for an entirely new processor. The speed gain would come from RISC, Reduced Instruction Set Chip Design. This was a huge gamble because no mainstream computer company had ever successfully transitioned to a new chip architecture. Now, Pentium had a lot of extra circuits in its new processor to maintain the backward compatibility, making it expensive and hot running. Apple decided they would not do that. They would write software to emulate the Motorola 68K chip. More specifically, the model being emulated was the Centra 610, with the 68LC040 processor, the LC meaning it had no math coprocessor. Now, to run this machine in emulation, they would need a very fast real processor. The new chip was the result of Apple's alliance with IBM and Motorola, based on IBM's existing Power architecture. It was called, just a second, the AIM Alliance. The alliance would name the new personal computer chip PowerPC. Turns out the 68K emulator running on the new PowerPC chip would run old software at about 2 CI speeds, which was usable but really pushed developers to recompile their software for the new chip. And these native PowerPC apps would display a badge so the customer would know. The PowerPC helped Apple surpass the current Pentium, and PowerPC would at least keep pace with Intel for years to come.
For the next couple of years, competition really heated up quite a bit. They set fire to our bunny person.
And PowerPC would help support whatever weird futuristic designs Apple would create.
$68K to PowerPC. And that transition happened about 10 years ago in the mid-90s. I wasn't here then, but the team then did a great job from everything I hear. It was a good move.
The plan was to release the first PowerPC Macintosh on January 24, 1994, the 10th anniversary of the original Macintosh. Turned out that deadline was just too tight. So on March 14th, Apple released a trio of Power Macs, the 6100, 7100, and 8100, using the same case designs as their direct Quadra predecessors. This would make motherboard upgrades simple for Centrus and Quadra users, though people expecting great new designs were not impressed. Here we have our new 60 MHz Power Macintosh 6100. It had a suggested retail price of $1,819 for the minimum 8 MB RAM, 160 MB hard drive config. This one has the special AV card on it, so add $200. And CD-ROM is hot right now, so we'll get an internal drive. Then we need a monitor. Oh, and a printer. And a keyboard. And who knows what else. So it really adds up. When we open up, the first thing we see is an accessory kit. The power cord, in a color Apple called Smoke, I don't know if that's a word you want to associate with your power cord. The ADB Mouse 2. Plain talk microphone, which came only with the AV model. And then S-Video to composite adapters for the AV card. And the box within the box has manuals. First, a thank you card. Very nice. Invitation to try the new online service eWorld. This was Apple's short-lived online service.
You have mail.
It did not reach critical mass and was shut down in March 1996. System Software CD. It came with System 7.1.2, a special version of System 7.1 with the bare minimum of PowerPC code, like we're talking 15%. The rest of the OS ran in 68K emulation. Well, it looks like the software team got their homework in on time. Other than that, it's all manuals. Here is our Power Macintosh 6100. If you want to know when the computer was made, it is plain as day on the rear sticker. This one is March 9th, 1994, built just before the Power Mac release date. The 6100 case design evolved from the Macintosh 2 SI, maintaining the SI's low profile and curved front radius. 6100 case itself was originally made for the Centra 610. Internally, the 6100 was still quite similar to the SI, with a single PDS slot for expansion, L-shaped PDS adapters, and RAM-based video. An important note, any Mac with this case design requires a good clock battery or you won't get any video when you start up. The startup chime was a guitar strum by Stanley Jordan. This was done special for this first round of Power Macs. It was not even on the Power Macintosh upgrade card. If you bought the $700 PowerPC upgrade card for your Quadra, the chime was some maxed out version of the original startup chime. Here's the original chime. Now if we turn on the PowerPC card in the control panel and restart, the system even calls it a Power Macintosh 800. Okay, back to our Power Mac. We're booting into System 7.1.2. This machine has the maximum RAM at the time, 72 megabytes. That's two 32 megabyte SIMs plus the 8 megabytes on the motherboard. Future SIMs would have higher capacities, allowing 136 megabytes or even 264 megabytes. But reportedly, overheating then becomes an issue. The SIMs had to be added in identical pairs because the PowerPC processor had 64-bit data paths, and therefore always needed a pair of 32-bit SIMs to work with for memory. So it came as no surprise that PowerPC systems needed roughly double the memory than before. The 6100 would boot every system through 8 up to macOS 9.1, which was released in January 2001. But obviously it runs very slow. Like the case design, the first PowerPC OS didn't add much in the way of anything new, but it did feature a new graphing calculator. Check this out. Pretty amazing. It could graph 3 dimensions and graph inequalities. Oof, that's taxing the processor a bit. 7.1.2 was only around for a short time before they brought out System 7.5 on September 12, 1994. To upgrade our original 60 MHz to this OS would cost $135, suggested retail price. But really, this had to be disappointing for early buyers of Power Macs.
Damn!
Now let's talk about the various versions of this computer. First, the AV version, which had a special 2 megabyte video card with television standard in and out as video ports. The previous 660 AV had composite video in and out, S video in and out, and the standard monitor port right off the motherboard. The 6100 AV put this on a video card and threw in the composite video adapters. So the compromise being you lose your only expansion slot, a compromise you didn't have to make with the 660 AV. AV versions came with a video capture app and a video monitor app. Video monitor allowed you to watch television format video on your computer. Very cool, but doing any serious video work was still beyond this card. 6 months after the 6100 was released, they would start to release identical Performa versions, which came as a bundle of monitor, keyboard, software, printer, and modem, aimed at less discriminating consumers who didn't want to separately buy all the parts. The Performas were named 6110 CD, 6112 CD, 6115 CD, 6117 CD, 6118 CD.
And we hope that people want to collect all 5.
Wait, no. Steve Jobs was talking about the Rainbow iMacs, not the 6100 series Performas. And by the way, Steve, there were actually 6 Performas, not 5. You see, after these 5 models were discontinued in July 1995, they brought out a single model, the Performa 6116 CD, and used it as a low-end bottom feeder model, dragging it out well into 1996 where a 60 MHz machine had no business still being sold. There were not many differences between the Performa models, just hard drive size and software package. The scam was that each retailer would carry a different model and therefore be able to claim that they have the lowest price around on that model. What a racket. Another variation was the DOS compatible.
Microsoft Windows running on a Macintosh? Sounds like the best of both worlds, doesn't it?
If you say so. The previous year, Apple made a DOS card for Centrus and Quadra 610s. The card was codenamed Houdini. Based on strong sales of that unit, a new DOS card was made for the 6100, which was more powerful and nicknamed the Houdini 2, with a 486 DX2 chip and a sound card. Originally selling as an add-in card for about $600, and shortly after as the DOS-compatible system in the new 66 MHz 6100. It also came with a crazy-looking monitor and joystick adapter. This power button confused PC users who were used to having a button under the floppy drive to eject a disk. It was such a problem that in the DOS-compatible version of the 6100, they actually labeled the power button. Well, maybe that was unnecessary. And finally, there was a workgroup server version, the 6150, with a massive 700 megabyte hard drive and a quad-speed CD-ROM. No microphone, though. Speaking of the microphone, the speech technology was also a pretty cool feature. Now, text-to-speech technology was not new. It went back much further, and not just on the Macintosh. For example, the Texas Instruments TI-99 from 1981 could do text-to-speech through the Speech Synthesizer plugin module, and the software cartridge, Terminal Emulators 2. This was before public internet, so this cartridge let you connect to subscription database services and send electronic mail. For some reason, they threw in speech capabilities, and not very useful unless you were a kid. Over a decade later, on the 6100, you could not only do text-to-speech, but also give commands to the computer. There were multiple feedback voices to choose from, like Princess, Ralph, Trinoids, but a favorite is Junior.
Starting up. Ready.
Okay, minimize, get out of here. Computer, hello.
Hello. Welcome to Macintosh.
Computer, what is the date?
Saturday, January 30, 2016.
Computer, notepad. Here's a cool thing. If we type secret about box here, highlight it, and drag it to the desktop, you get a breakout game with the development team names. And this only works in the original release of System 7.5. Anyway, computer, tell me a joke.
Earl has a big fat bum.
Computer, that's not a joke.
Pardon me?
Okay, jokes must have been in a later version. Computer, shut down.
Are you sure you want to shut down?
Computer, yes.
Goodbye.
It's now 20 years later, and text-to-speech and voice recognition on the Mac have evolved, but remain a niche technology. With the Apple handheld computer known as iPhone, voice recognition is more practical and is being used by the mainstream for the first time. Instead of plain talk, it is called Siri.
Earl has a big fat bum.
That's not nice.
Another 20 years in the future, we'll have intelligent speech recognition. Okay, this is the new Mac Pro, early 2037. Let's test the speech capabilities. Computer, hello.
Hey man, what's going down?
What plain talk voice is this?
Come on, it's Lester! What are you talking about, man?
Can you use the Ralph plain talk voice, please?
Ralph! Ralph, all over yourself, man!
What's wrong with this thing?
You let go! Hey!
Okay, here's an artificial intelligence question. So what do you think of 65 Scribe and his YouTube Macintosh videos from back in the 20-teens?
That guy is such a space case, man!
Hey, those are my videos.
This stuff stinks!
Okay, not the legacy I was hoping for.
Meek.
What?
Now, you hear this music, you cat cat?
I'm not talking about music.
Be hip, you cat! Come on!
What about something by Mozart?
No way, man! Get those!
Is this free, this music?
$10 a minute, let's go!
What? No! What the hell is wrong with this thing?
Let go! Be separate! Gee whiz!
Computer, shut down.
Okay, man, see you later.
Okay, bye. I'm so out of touch with technology now. The 6100 never got Energy Star compliance because it was not possible to shut down the computer without physically shutting it off. In other words, the computer can't shut itself off in software. This also meant the keyboard power button did not work.
Just do anything?
No, stop that. Bungie, whose new Marathon game was released December 1994, jumped all over PowerPC. From their system requirements section of the user manual, they say if the new Power Mac is not fast enough, take it back to the dealer because he probably sold you a Centris in a Power Mac case. Yeah, take that. The first generation Power Mac was the ultimate machine for Marathon. And performed well for Marathon 2. And Marathon Infinity. They called the last one Infinity because Bungie gave you all the tools to make your own maps and scenarios, resulting in hundreds of user maps, with quality ranging from terrible maps like Crinfinity.
Just do anything?
If you ever wanted to see a two-dimensional wall, here it is. Oh my god, so many of these guys. Get out of my way! Hey, some action. Wait. Uh-oh. Traffic jam. Huh. Then at the other end of the spectrum are great maps like Farchi's Revenge. Hell was that? All maps are still downloadable from the Marathon archive today, almost 20 years later. The main criticisms of the 6100 were the limited card expansion and the bizarre video implementation. The RAM-based onboard video used a new special high-density port, which carried video, sound, and ADB in one cable. This was done to reduce cable clutter, but the only monitor that was capable of connecting directly was the AudioVision monitor, which looked kind of bizarre. That's why I didn't buy it at the time. Businesses felt the same way, since it made the computer look more like a toy. Poor sales of the monitor meant high-density interface did not catch on at all, and it was dropped after this first generation of PowerPCs. A special adapter was included with the non-AV 6100s, just so they could connect to standard monitors through the HDI port. On the adapter, you can see how few pinouts were actually for video on this port. Strangely, in 2000, enough with that. In 2000, Apple would make another failed attempt at combining everything into one monitor cable with the Apple Display connector. In the standard 14-inch monitor range, the best Apple monitor, in my opinion, was the 1992 Macintosh Color Display. It was higher quality than that cheap Color Plus display that was just a repackaged Gold Star budget monitor. Now, the Macintosh Color Display was designed to complement the 2SI and LC computers with a matching built-in stand, but it was unfortunately on its way out at the start of the PowerPC era. It would soon be replaced by multi-sync monitors, allowing on-the-fly resolution switching, which these new Macs now supported. The motherboard had a 4 MB ROM sim. Then right beside it was a spot for the optional 256K Level 2 cache card. It was a $300 add-on. The cache card only came standard on the high-end 8180. Strangely, it does not matter which card goes in which slot. How could that not matter? Under the new heatsink design was the PowerPC chip.
Here's the brains of the new Power Macintosh personal computers, the PowerPC 601 microprocessor.
Okay, this dude is hardcore. I'm not tearing my machine down that far.
It's a product of an historic alliance formed in 1991 between Apple, IBM, and Motorola.
Yeah, I talked about that already. The 601 would eventually max out in clock speed at 120 MHz, which was used in the PowerMac 7200. If you remember the early roadmaps for the PowerPC, there was always the hyper-powerful 620 chip looming in the distant future. In reality, by the time the 620 was produced, the 604E was already faster than it, so it never did go into a Mac. Unlike the original Centrus 610, where it was an add-on, an Ethernet connector was standard on the 6100 for connecting to a network. But this was not the standard RJ45 port that we're all used to. Back then, Ethernet cabling and ports came in all shapes and sizes. So Apple decided to adopt the attachment unit interface standard, which could be adapted to whatever standard you needed with a matching transceiver box. Unfortunately for Apple, AUI uses exactly the same style 15-pin connector as the one they use for the Apple monitors. So to avoid confusion, or cause confusion depending how you look at it, Apple developed their own standard, the Apple Attachment Unit Interface Connector, and first put it in the Quadra 700 and 900. This also meant you had to go to the store and buy one of these transceivers to match whatever Ethernet cabling you were using.
Damn!
10BASE-T was obviously the winning Ethernet standard, and after the 6100, all second-generation Power Macs included the Direct Connect RJ45 port as well. The AAUI port quietly disappeared with the introduction of the G3. The keyboard was the brand new Apple Design keyboard. It had a lower cost than the former Extended Keyboard 2. It had feet that could be flipped out to angle the keyboard toward you, but if you used them, the CD tray of the 6100 would not clear the top of the keyboard, so in most cases you could not use them. The cable was also hardwired to the keyboard for the first time, and only one ADB port instead of two. And unfortunately, they reduced the number of ADB ports on the computer from 2 down to 1, so there was no choice, you had to plug the mouse into the keyboard. Many would hang on to their old extended keyboard because of the better quality and flexibility. Ooh. Time to review my retrobrighting video again. Now, as I talked about earlier, Apple speed bumped the 6100 to 66 MHz in January 1995. Apple also took the opportunity to double the hard drive size, add the PlaneTalk microphone to the base model package, and make that $300 cash card standard.
Damn!
The 66 MHz 6100 would be discontinued in October 1995, replaced by the recently released 75 MHz 7200. The AV features were moved to the 100 MHz 7500, and the AV was just dropped from the name. Even then, video out ports were conspicuously missing. You'd need a PowerMac 8500 to get those ports, or buy your own AV card. Now, you would think that the 6200 was a successor to the 6100, but the 6200 used the PowerPC 603 low power chip. It was actually slower than the original 6100 for many tasks. It was also Performa, not a Power Macintosh, and a seriously compromised design in many ways. Definitely not a worthy successor to the 6100. Along with the new case designs, the second generation brought in Intel's PCI Bus, replacing NuBus. In the grand scheme of things, the first generation PowerPCs were just a stepping stone between the Quadras and the PCI Macs. Apple would enter a major downturn in 1995, but it wasn't because of the first generation Power Macs or even because of Windows 95. It was incompetent leadership.
Aggressively priced products with all the power and persuasiveness of the Macintosh.
Cutbacks, layoffs, corporate upheaval led to poor morale, which was reflected in the products.
Johnson! Johnson! Are you sleeping again? Wake up! Was that good? Yeah.
To learn more, check out many of the excellent Vintage Mac websites found using your favorite search engine. Well, maybe not Bing. Special thanks to RJ from Kitchener, Ontario, and Alan from South Carolina for rescuing and donating the 6100s shown in this video. But most PowerMac 6100s have not been so lucky. Anyway, so strategies for restoring these machines.
Oh man, seriously?
Okay, in a case like this, isopropyl alcohol will take off the heavy marker. And a magic eraser sponge can take off any of the shadow left behind. These are probably the most fragile Macintosh cases ever made, if you don't count scratches on the Macintosh G4 tower. The back latches are fragile. The feet are fragile. The CD bezel clips are fragile. And that support post inside the case is just asking to get broken off when you're disconnecting internal cables. The cases are made of ABS plastic, so for repair either use ABS plumbing cement, or for more cosmetic repairs, use carefully applied acetone. Just know that the parts will bond in seconds, so you won't have a lot of time to adjust the pieces once they're glued. Another thing to remember, you cannot remove the model sticker without destroying it. This guy obviously tried, and then tried to hide it. It didn't fool me. I'm sure Apple did that as a security thing, so some diabolical person could not just swap stickers with another computer. If you're planning retrobrite treatment to take the yellow out of the case, I highly recommend removing the inset Apple logo. Now, you will have to drill into the inside of the case so the Apple logo can be pushed out. Most cases have a small dimple which will guide you where to drill. Obviously, be careful how deep you drill. You don't want to drill into the logo itself. And got it. There. I hope this video was useful, educational, or at least entertaining. And to end the video, I'll hand it over to the Power Mac.
Thank you for watching this video on the Power Macintosh 6100. Stay tuned to this channel for more Macintosh videos.
No, not wrong!
Okay, so that was it for the original 6100 video from 2016. The fourth video in the series when I had maybe 200 subscribers. Now, as mentioned, I wanted to add a few things to the original video. The Apple TV tuner card was available for other Mac models, and quite cool, but I should point out that with the 6100 AV model, you could use a VCR as the TV tuner and do the same thing. Check it out.
Snuggly Bug got a new set of rugs, Bath got a new set of tiles.
Ugh, commercials.
And hardwood of glowing Ontario. Carpet Supermart, Terra Carpet Supermart.
Okay, maybe this TV tuner idea wasn't as cool as I remember. Next, credit where credit was due. When I was talking about eWorld, the eWorld graphics that I used I got from Andrea Gruel's website. A Flash-based interactive emulation of System 7 and eWorld. Unfortunately, this website is now gone. Fortunately, I was able to access it thanks to the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine with a site capture from 2018. Unfortunately, Adobe hit the kill switch on their Flash player at the start of 2021. Enough with that. Too bad for Adobe that there are Flash player emulators like Ruffle. Install the plugin to the web browser and back in business. The emulation is unfinished, but Android gives you that real retro feel. To me, this looks like 7.51, which promoted eWorld heavily. Let's launch eWorld.
You have mail.
First thing you'd check is the mail center. A couple of the buildings open, but not much beyond that. Here's the computer center and info booth. Okay, let's disconnect. If you want to try Android's emulation, there's information in the description. Hopefully someone can redo it on a modern platform because it is fun. Includes a fully functional gag app called Virtual Viagra. I remember running the app on my 6100.
Whoa!
I viewed the joke and then deleted it. But then anytime my 6100 encountered an unknown file, it would think it was a Virtual Viagra document. Took some explaining when someone used my computer. Okay, an ad break to pay the bills, and then I'll finish up with one more segment.
Open the doors, have a look at the floors. Who could ask for anything more at Ontario? Carpet Supermart. Ontario. Carpet Supermart. Ontario Carpet Supermart. Ontario Carpet Supermart. Ontario Carpet Supermart. Damn! Oh, yeah.
In 2016, just after I released this video, I got one more 6100. A DOS compatible with, redundantly enough, a second retail DOS compatibility card in the box. Yeah, kind of a pricey add-on. Houdini card for PDM. Of course, Piltdown Man. Note how they had to angle the RAM slot away from the board. A last-minute engineering workaround if I ever saw one. Probably because of the 6100's low-profile case. Here's another card with the heatsink removed, and we see that 46DX2 chip. And this one has the RAM card installed. The 6100 itself, 66 MHz. Like I said, any DOS compatible is going to be 66 MHz. The front looks reasonably good, however the feet are missing and there's minor damage to the case itself. The restoration company Mac Effects does sell replacement feet if your 6100 has the same problem. Removing the cover, it looks good. The DOS compatibility card is installed, Apple 250MB hard drive, and CD-ROM. The CD-ROM is not factory. Power supply is good. Oh, the battery. One of those bad ones made by Maxell that really likes to rupture and leak highly corrosive liquid, ruining your Mac. Something rattling around in your Mac Classic? Well, guess what?
Damn!
Is this one any good? Piece of junk. In the box is a manual for the PC sound card. Because sound was a novelty on PCs back then, this little board was a common PC third-party add-on. That's Creative Technologies' popular Sound Blaster, which got huge in the PC world by filling the audio gap. The unfortunate thing is the box does not have the DOS and Windows install disks, and they were no longer installed on the hard drive of the 6100. As for the next generation of Pentium class cards, there was the PowerMax 7200 PC compatible, and then the 7300 and 4400 PC compatibles. Or again, you buy a compatible Apple kit and install one on any Mac with a free PCI slot. I was donated one by Luke LaRocque. I just had to pay shipping, and once he received that, he had to ship it out.
Put it in a box. Put it in a box and mark it Fragilli.
Mark it what?
Mark it Fragilli. F-R-A-G. Look it up, Jamison. It's in the dictionary. Look under fragile.
Apple moved away from PC compatibles after that point, leaving it completely to third parties. Hope you enjoyed the update, and if you want to see the original 6100 video and all the great viewer comments, the link's in the description. And I will see you next time.
There was this crazy guy from Holland here one day, and he had long hair, and it was all matted and blonde, and lots of tattoos, big, like, you know, not big, but strong, kind of skinny, and he had a cute little wife, much younger than he was, and like 3 or 4 little toddlers running around, and you know, and he came and he bought one of these kites, and I said, oh, I don't know how well they fly. They're for dogs. I don't know how well they fly or whatever. He said, oh, I'm not going to fly it. I don't want to fly it anyway. I said, oh, and he said, I'm going to hang it in the bedroom. So some guy in Holland has this thing hanging in his bedroom with his wife and his 4 toddlers.
At the patrol. He has them hanging in his bedroom too?
Yeah.